What's up everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Keelan and today I'm going to be giving you guys my review for Terrifier in preparation for Terrifier 2 coming out later this month. But real quick before I get into that, I just want to say if you're not already, please make sure you subscribe and ring the notification bell to get updates on all of my latest videos. And also follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at KillTheCredits to keep updated on what I have going on and what I'll be posting in the near future. And with all of that out of the way, let's talk about Terrifier. So back in 2008, aspiring filmmaker Damien Leone released his short film titled The Ninth Circle, which featured a minor character by the name Art the Clown. And fans found that character so memorable that it led Damien Leone to create another short film in 2011 titled Terrifier. Then, 2 years later in 2013, we would get another film by Damien Leone titled All Hallows Eve, which is a Halloween anthology series that takes footage from The Ninth Circle, footage from the Terrifier short film, and combine it into one story that eventually connects back to Art the Clown, pretty much stalking this babysitter and the two kids that she's watching. From there, Damien would take 3 years off and work on some other projects until eventually giving us the full-length film Terrifier in 2016. Now, I don't remember exactly when the first time I saw this movie was, but I do remember seeing pictures of Art on Instagram and at the time not knowing who or what he was from. And so after doing some digging, I found out that he was a killer in a movie called Terrifier, which so happened to be on Netflix at the time. So I went ahead and watched it, and I distinctly remember feeling like, okay, this is something new, something fresh. I'd pretty much seen majority of the slasher films up to that point, old and new, and this one just had its own vibe altogether. And it really felt like maybe they were onto something, like maybe we were gonna get a modern day horror slasher icon, which I was and still am excited for, because aside from maybe The Collector, there really hasn't been a modern day slasher icon in quite some time. Yeah, off the top of my head, The Collector is probably the only one that I could think of that would be in the running. But even that has only had 2 films in the franchise so far, with a rumored third. I'm not really sure what's going on with that one, but aside from him, I think Art the Clown is probably the closest thing that we're going to get. And I believe that after watching Terrifier 2, we'll know for sure if that is going to be the case. So for the pros, I firstly want to say I believe that Damien Leone and company made the best possible movie that they could with the resources that they had at the time. And this movie doesn't have great story development or character development, but where it lacks in those parts, it makes up for in unapologetically being a gory, nasty, grindhouse type slasher flick. And I believe that Damien used this movie as a way to say, hey, everybody out there, look, this is what we can do with the resources that we have and the money that we have. This is what we can do with that. Somebody platform us, give us money, give us the opportunity and leeway to make something bigger, and we will up the ante. And in this movie, Art the Clown is a demented and vile villain, shrouded in a ton of mystery, and anytime they're able to display that, they do. There were at least 3 to 4 moments in this movie that caught me completely off guard, came out of left field, from over-the-top kills to unconventional weapon choices, to just downright sick and twisted antics. Terrifier capitalizes off of audience expectations and just is itself 110% of the time. And not to mention, for having such a low budget, the practical effects and the makeup were done really well, and you see that within the first 5 minutes of the movie. Something else unique to this movie is the color grading that they put on the movie. Kind of gives it that grindhouse style, very grainy in texture, and it focuses on a lot of the red and green tones. And that just adds to that gross feeling that this movie gives you, makes you feel like you just need to shower and bleach afterwards. I also really enjoyed the score for this movie. It utilizes a lot of electronic sounds and aggressive synth sounds to kind of build that tension or set a tone for a specific scene in the movie. And there's one scene in particular where our main character Tara comes face to face with a bloody Art the Clown for the first time, and they use this sort of riser effect that creates like a very quick and immediate feeling of tension, and it's a riser goes and then it hits a silent point, and then you just shows Art the Clown, and you know he's doing his fucking weird shit, and it drops from the silence straight into like this disgusting screech noise. And it's like they use the riser. I kind of like the feeling that it gave me, the best way I could describe it as, they use this riser as sort of like a vacuum to suck the air out of the room, and you're just kind of sitting there frozen in fear, like, what the fuck? And Art the Clown's like, and that whole vacuum moment kind of just creates this high sense of anxiety, and then they just smack you in the face with this chaotic noise. It's fucking terrifying. Like, just exactly how the title of the movie is really makes you feel the way that I imagine Tara probably felt in that moment. And I also like this sort of sub-villain character that they build throughout the movie as well. It kind of reminded me of like a Split or a Glass type of vibe, where multiple kind of villains being created throughout the story. I'm just curious how they're going to utilize her, because obviously she's kind of crazy. Once you watch the movie, you understand. Are her and Art the Clown going to meet up again? Are they going to butt heads? Are they going to be friendly? Like, I don't imagine they're going to be besties or whatever. Like, is he going to kill her? Is she going to try to kill him? Or is she all around crazy? It's just very intriguing. It adds another dynamic to the movie that I found really interesting. And I don't want to say too much about him, because I feel like this is probably the biggest impact this movie will have on you when you watch it. But the kills in this movie are fantastic. Just the way that they're done and like the things that he does to these people, they really like thought outside of the box and tried to make it unique. They didn't want it to just be like some basic slasher. Like, Art the Clown is walking around with this fucking trash bag, and he's just got a bunch of weapons and tools and shit in it, and a bunch of crazy stuff, and he just, his bag of goodies, whenever he pulls out, he's just gonna use on you. And it's very creative in that aspect. And I think that is one of the main reasons why I found this movie to be so interesting, which I'm sure they will, but I hope they carry that on into the sequel for Terrifier 2. Moving right along, let's go ahead and get into the cons of this movie. So like I mentioned before, this film is completely void of story and character development. There's not really anybody that you can get invested in or connected to. And for me personally, I don't necessarily have to have something like that for me to enjoy a film, but I know for a lot of people it's going to affect the viewing experience. I mean, there were enough twists and turns for me to have fun with it and, you know, stay interested throughout the story, but I don't think something like that would be acceptable. Like, I don't think I would personally accept something like that if they did the exact same thing in Terrifier 2. Because like I said, I think they used this movie as kind of like to display what we can do with what we have, but they have a ton more resources for the sequel, and if it's still lacking plot, that means the writing is just not there and they need to figure it out, hire somebody else to write or collaborate. But yeah, I just, not something I necessarily need, but if that's what the whole series is going to be, I think eventually it will start, the lack of substance will start to dampen my experience. But I will say that I have read that Damien Leone came out and said that he did read the negative comments, so to speak, about Terrifier and how there was a lack of story and character development, and that he made sure that would not be the same case for Terrifier 2. But to add to that, I will say, because, you know, there isn't anybody to be invested in, this movie does sort of lack suspense. At least on rewatches, for the first time, you don't really know what's going to happen, so you're kind of like trying to navigate the movie and figure out what's going to happen as it's unfolding. But after you've completed the film, if you sit down and try to watch it again, it really doesn't have the same effect as far as suspense. There's pretty much none at that point, because you already know what's going to happen. You already know what the ending looks like, what's going to happen to everybody. So you kind of miss out on that suspense after that. But again, like most of these things that are cons, I genuinely think they're going to be fixed in the sequel, and we're going to get a better Terrifier movie all around. Fingers crossed. Because all in all, I think that if they can just make those adjustments and make a better sequel with lots of carnage, but also characters that you can connect to, appeal to, and invest in, ultimately, I think we're going to get a very sick sequel. They just have to develop more of what they already have. They have a solid starting point. Now it's time to expand further and gives us something more, something different. But ultimately, I do think Terrifier was the one that had to walk before the franchise could run. So overall, I would give Terrifier a 7 out of 10. I really did have a lot of fun with this movie. There was so many moments that I was just flabbergasted. I was taken aback because the shit is just different. And it's also a fun film. I know I did say there's not much rewatchability, but if you're showing this movie to somebody else, then there's a lot of value in that, because it's fun to see other people's reactions. I've shown this movie to multiple people, and it's always fun seeing their reactions to the shit that happens, because it's just so out of pocket. But what are your thoughts on this film? And do you think the sequel is going to live up to the hype, or is it going to fall flat and miss the mark? Let me know in the comment section below, and if you did like my review, please make sure to leave a like on this video. You can also follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at KillTheCredits to get updates on everything that I'm working on. And with that being said, happy Halloween season to everybody, and I will see you in the next video.